As Casey said, welcome everybody. We're really happy you're joining us tonight. My name is Nicole and I'm the head of community marketing over at Trusted. If you're not familiar, Trusted is the place for the modern nurse. We have everything from travel jobs across the country to podcasts, to blogs, to resources, to amazing virtual events and in-person events at some point, just like these. And tonight we're going to be talking about advancing your degree to advancing your career. We have two incredible hosts that I'm just so excited to introduce in just a moment. And this is the second event in a 3-event series, which is entitled What Else is Out There, all about other career paths that you could be taking beyond the bedside. So with that, we'll do a few agenda-y type items and we'll get going. So first up is asking questions through Zoom. If you have questions, we want them. We want to hear them. We want to triage them over to our hosts when it's the proper time for questions. So go ahead and shoot them into Zoom chat for everyone to see, or if it's a more private question, you can throw it to Casey Smith and she will put it to the right host when needed. This is your chance to listen, learn, and connect with each other as well as our hosts. So make sure to follow the hosts and figure out what kind of path you want to take in terms of your career beyond the bedside. And third, obviously get inspired to carve your own path with an advanced nursing degree. In terms of our agenda, what we're going to talk about today, first, we're going to talk about graduate school. Second is going to be master's versus a doctoral degree. Third is careers for these advanced nursing degrees. Four, we got some pro tips from our two pros, and then we'll end with some extra Q&A. So with that, I'm really happy to introduce Beth A. Brooks, and I'll let her take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Brooks, and I live in Chicago full-time. Excited to chat with you tonight about grad school, which probably sounds horribly dry, but it's really not. Actually, we're going to give you all kinds of pearls of wisdom, and one of which is how I ended up working in a global advertising agency. Had a lot to do with grad school. And something fun and interesting about me is I own 2 Havana brown cats, which are chocolate brown cats with green eyes that are very, they're called a minority breed because they're so rare. And one of them might walk across if I'm not careful. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, so hello everyone. I am Nicole Thomas. I am a registered nurse of 16 years. A little bit about me, my background. Started traditionally in med-surg, then moved on to managed care. As of the last 8 years of my career, I have definitely devoted all of my career to being a community and public health nurse, also doing a lot in the leadership realm there, and taking that into the academic setting to be able to really and truly teach other nurses about the importance of community and public health nurses, in which I do teach in a BSN program here in Louisiana where I reside. So I'm super excited about that. I am also the co-founder of the Nurse Power Network, an online platform and an offline event curation platform where we help nurses to tap into their nurse power. Power for us means purpose, opportunity, willpower, empowerment, and then providing them with resources. And a fun fact about me is I like reality TV. I know, right? Love it or hate it. That's my guilty pleasure, and I like indulging in that. And yeah, so here's my social media links. I want all of you all to go and follow me on social media. I'm always giving so many different pearls of wisdom just on a daily basis, and I'm super excited about this conversation tonight. All right, so I will go ahead and get started. First thing that we're going to talk about tonight is going to be graduate school. So I know Bev kind of talked about earlier one of the things that, how grad school actually led to her going to a national or global publication company and kind of said, oh, it seems kind of dry, but I promise you that graduate school is not all that bad. And so we really and truly want to talk about grad school, but really and truly talk about it from the perspective of what it can do for you in your career as a nurse and the different opportunities that going to graduate school can actually offer you if you take this particular path. So let's dive into it. So a couple of things I want us to start off with. I always believe in setting a career actual foundation before we really get down into the nitty gritty, the actual tips and tangible actionable steps that you can actually take. So let's lay our foundation and let's talk about the different things that you need to consider before taking that leap to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and go back to grad school to advance my career as a nurse in whatever path it is that you choose. So there's three key fundamental areas that you really and truly need to think about first. That first area is what we call your area of interest. All right. So this is where you really and truly need to take a really, really good look at your nursing career over time, for everything that you've done, and think about those different things that you really like doing as a nurse, and think about some of those things that you did not like as a nurse. All right. You also want to think about what are some of those things that really frustrated you as a nurse, that you felt that there was a lot of opportunity to be able to make an impact and change in those areas, because those are the different type of things that's going to lead you down the path of really and truly going into a field of advanced practice, whatever that may be for you, to where it's actually something that you enjoy doing. So you really and truly need to do a lot of self-assessment. And here's why self-assessment is so critically important. I know right now we live in a time and a day and age where things are very, very trendy, right? Everybody's going to school to be a nurse practitioner. I absolutely love my nurse practitioner friends. Don't get me wrong. I love everything about them, and they're doing phenomenal work out here. But I always knew that that was not me, right? It was not something that I enjoyed. I did not, really and truly like the hours that they would have to work. I didn't like the caseload that they would have to take on. I didn't like it when I was a floor nurse, right? So I knew for sure I would not like it as an advanced practice nurse working as a nurse practitioner. So there, I had to do some serious, serious self-reflection on what was purposeful and intentional and brought Nicole joy, not what was the actual trend or what was popping at the time, so they say, that everybody else was doing. So you definitely want to really and truly hone in on your area of interest, not Nicole's area, not Beth's area. What are your areas of interest? The second part of that is you definitely want to look at your professional and your personal different opportunities that are there. So when we talk about professional and personal, some things that you want to consider, number one, about work-life balance. Let's be honest, for most of us nurses that decide to go back to school to advance our careers and advance our education, there is a balance there that we have to happen. By this time, a lot of us, we're already working a full-time job as a nurse. Unlike in undergraduate, we weren't doing that. By this time, a lot of us are married, we have families, and we may not have had that in the undergraduate. So it's a different level of work-life balance that we really and truly have to consider. So you definitely want to look at what is that going to look like for you? What are some things that you're going to have to balance, right? What are some things that we may have to say, I need to hang up this hat here for a little while, or I may need to actually pull some help in this particular area so that I can balance and manage all of this. You also want to look at your tenure in the profession and also tenure in the role. These are different things that you definitely want to consider professionally, because they're going to help you to be able to really and truly push forward in that path of advancing your education. The third thing that you definitely want to consider is the financial commitments and eligibility. I don't know about you all, and I'm going to be very, very honest with you and very transparent, because that's how I am. I didn't have the opportunity to have, loads of money saved up for any of my degrees, right? And that was my undergraduate, my graduate, and also my doctoral degree. And unfortunately, I did have to actually take out loans for a lot of that, and then pay a lot of that out of pocket, out of my own pocket. So that's something we need to consider. We want to look at different financial aid opportunities that may exist. There are a numerous amount of different financial aid opportunities and some grants that actually nurses that decide to go back to school for their graduate degree can get, depending on what area that you're going in. And a specific example of that is, right now we know that there is a huge shortage of faculty. And so there are different grants that are actually put out by HRSA, in which they will actually pay for your education, your MSN degree, if you actually, commit to working in an academic institution for a certain amount of time. So those are some things you definitely want to look around and look for those opportunities that may actually exist. There's scholarships. There's a lot of time tuition reimbursement, right, from your employer in which you may be working at. There are certain criteria there that you may have to meet such as you may have to be in that particular role for a certain amount of time. You may have had to work for that institution for a certain amount of time, but there's still that opportunity to help you to be able to offset some of those costs that are associated with going back to graduate school, because it's definitely something, that is very, very real for us. And I know if you're like me, you don't want to keep adding on and piling on so many different student loans, but you definitely want to keep that in mind. And the last thing that you want to consider there is really and truly looking at the different opportunities that exist for scholarships. And I think I talked about that. There are so many different scholarships that are out there. And then the GRE scores. Look at the different institutions. Some institutions do require you to have the certain GRE score. Some institutions just require you to at least take the GRE score, the GRE, and some of them actually do not require you to take the GRE at all. But this is something that you want to consider, because if the institution that you actually want to go to for graduate school has a certain score that you have to make, or you do have to actually take that exam, you want to look at the timing of that, right? How far in advance do you need to start taking that, especially if a certain score is tied to that, and when you want to start school there, how often is that particular exam actually offered, so that you can be in alignment with the timing that you want to do. Again, that goes back to that work-life balance. So already before you get into graduate school, you're already having to try to balance some of those different things. So those are definitely three of the core elements that you want to make sure that you consider before you even sign your name on a dotted line, get your nice notebook, and attend your first day of class, right? Really, really think about these things. And I want to put emphasis on thinking about your area of interest, right? Really, really do a lot of self-assessment there, because that's critical that you're very, very intentional about this, and that you're making strategic steps that are really and truly going to align with what you want to do for your career 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years down the line. All right. So let's talk about some of the benefits of graduate school. What are some of the reasons, it would behoove you to go back to graduate school? There are a plethora of reasons. Some of these may be more personal to you, but we're really and truly going to highlight some of the overall general benefits, okay? And we're going to title this more so career mobility. And so what does this mean when we say career mobility? Every single credential added to your name is an opportunity for you to create and actually increase your asset value, right? What do I mean when I say asset value? AKA, it can increase the value that you're worth financially. Okay. And so that means sometimes the playing field is not what it was when you did not have those additional credentials. Now you have to pay me because I have a higher level of education. I have a higher knowledge base. And what costs? Our knowledge costs, right? So you're definitely positioning yourself to be able to really and truly increase your asset value, as I call it, AKA increase how much money that particular organization is going to pay you. That does take some negotiation. There are a lot of instances where, there may not be a pay increase. It just really and truly depends on what area you're going into, but just know that that is always an option. The next thing that you want to think about is, do you want to be able to teach with that? And that's one thing that is very, very good about getting your master's degree or going back to graduate school in any actual track or any particular program, is because that now allows you to be able to take that and add another level of opportunity in which you can now teach individuals. Okay, so do you want a postmaster's or a post-bachelor's, something like that? It also increases opportunities. I can't tell y'all how many opportunities are going to come your way, right? Whenever you take that actual leap and you start to expand your knowledge base, because you become the subject matter expert. We know in our undergraduate studies, they're pretty much teaching us the foundational principles of how to provide safe, competent, high quality nursing care, right? Which is phenomenal, something that we all need to know how to do as nurses. But when you go to graduate school, that knowledge base is taken up. You're really and truly positioning yourself as the subject matter expert in whatever field it is that you decide you want to go in. And what is that going to do for you? It's going to open up so many different opportunities, right? Opportunities such as being able to educate different organizations, right, in your area of expertise, being able to consult with different organizations, being able to become their, super user in a certain area. So all of these different opportunities, and they are literally endless, that they can actually present for you. And the most important thing that I absolutely love about graduate school is it increases your network. I know this is going to sound cliche what I'm about to say, but I promise you guys, I have learned this, especially over the last 5 to 7 years of my career. It's going to increase your network. And we all know that our network definitely is going to be a reflection of our net worth, right? I know it's cliche, but I promise you all that is true. And here's why it does that. Whenever you go to graduate school, you're meeting people from different backgrounds with different experiences, with different, outlooks on how they view the healthcare profession as a whole. They may have someone else that they may want to introduce you to. I can't tell you how many college professors who I have actually taken and, explained to them what it is that I wanted to do with my degree going back to graduate school, and them saying, you know what, I know someone that is actually doing this right now. Maybe this may be a good connection for you to actually connect with them, right? Again, it's all about being able to network in those different areas, and going to graduate school can definitely help you to be able to network and get even closer to the opportunities that are there that exist for you. So what are some of the expectations, right? I've talked to you about, some things you need to consider. We've talked about the benefits. I've hyped you all up about that. But what are some expectations, right? We all know that there's going to be expectations that are going to be tied to anything. And going back to graduate school is no different. So we talked about work-life balance. That's definitely an expectation that is there. We know even in undergraduate, a lot of times, our professors may not really do a whole lot of hand holding. They may do a little bit because they do, are trying to get us over that transition from coming out of grade school. So they may do a little bit more hand holding, but really and truly, when you step into a graduate program, the level of expectation is definitely different, right? So we definitely have to make sure, again, we have that whole work-life balance down, and being able to effectively communicate when we have challenges and barriers about that. We also want to look at the total compensation. What is the resistance to change for individuals? And also, it allows for the ability to generate multiple streams of income. And I'm going to pause really quick right here. And we have right there some of those different streams, such as consulting, service-based professionals, coaching, mentoring. You can do all of those different things. But I really want to highlight the importance of this right now, guys. And as nurses, I think that one of the biggest lessons that I know that I learned throughout this entire pandemic, while there was a multitude of different lessons I learned, one of them was we, even as nurses, must have multiple streams of income. Who would have ever thought that there would be a time where nurses, okay, who are always needed, would actually be furloughed? I know several of my colleagues that were furloughed, not because there was not a need for nurses to actually go and work the COVID pandemic that we were facing, and we still are facing, right? Definitely in several states as of right now, but because there were several areas in which nurses they were not needed. For example, surgeries, all elective surgeries, if it was not something that was a dire need to really and truly save your life right now, they were canceled. So all of those particular nurses, they didn't have cases to go do. They were ultimately furloughed, and this happened in multiple different areas, those that work in clinics. And that was an opportunity for me to really and truly say, this is why we as nurses, we really and truly need to have those multiple streams of income. And what better way to start to position yourself to be able to do that by being a consultant, right? By being that service-based professional, by being a mentor, by being a coach, then providing the knowledge and information that you already have as a subject matter expert, okay? So this is one of the other most important things I definitely think on this slide. If you don't take anything else away from that, I want you to know that graduate school can do this for you. Yes, you can definitely do this, by just having your undergraduate degree, but I'm telling you the different level of opportunities that now open up whenever you position. It's the power of positioning. Whenever you position yourself with that graduate level and increased knowledge to be able to do these things. So there are a ton of opportunities there.
So any questions? We're doing okay. I know we're I'm checking the chat. We seem to be doing okay. So this is the part of the presentation where I'm going to try to provide you with a really high level overview, because this is one of those questions that I hear all the time from nurses that, often we graduate with our bachelor's degree and we think we want to go back to school, but we receive typically very little career advice. And so this is a huge investment. It's an investment of your time, your money. It's an investment in you, your career, your family. So this is not the time to, follow the herd and do what everybody else is doing. As Nicole has said, you really want to understand what is it that will make you the most happy. So I'm going to talk through sort of this alphabet soup. And I hear this all the time from nurses. They're like, I don't understand what all these letters mean. I don't know what the degree is. How do I know the right fit for me? And this is where it's probably not a bad idea to find someone that can help you talk through some of these things. And I hate to say it, but generally speaking, there's actually some pretty interesting literature around career planning and career decision making. Most organizations, your employers, are worried about their staffing and their organization and how are they going to achieve their goals. And they're not necessarily so worried about you as an individual achieving your career goals. So you have to be a little bit selfish here and spend some time worrying about yourself, because many organizations still struggle to do a really good job of succession planning. So this is where you sort of have to take the bull by the horns and make these decisions for yourself, because you may not find a lot of advice or recommendations in your immediate employer. And of course, I'm not saying that that's always the case, but there's different motivations there, right? So think about all of these letters, right? College of Nursing awards a Master's of Science in Nursing. A College of Business awards an MBA. Some of them award the Master's in Health Administration. Public Health, many nurses, you will see many, many nurses with RN, MPH. And that's actually Nicole, right? You in public health, that is a very, if you have a real passion for community health and wellness and health policy, you might find yourself doing an MPH. And then the MHA is sort of the public school health version of health administration. So it's a Master's in Health Administration. And then you often see nurses with the Master's in Education, and that is coming from the college. And I'm going to go back to graduate college. I didn't forget. So the reason I'm pointing this out in all these different letters, one, helps you sort of understand what do all these degrees mean. But B, this is back to what Nicole said. You need to really understand what's important to you and how you identify and how do you define yourself. Because if you choose to go into a different college, which is a perfectly reasonable thing for a nurse to do, you could be the only nurse in the MBA program or the only nurse in an MHA program. And that's not a bad thing. It's just you're starting to move out of, your tribe of nurses. And so it's just something to sort of think about. What makes your heart sing? Is it public health? Is it business? Is it education? And that's not to say you have to go into one of those other colleges just to receive that type of education and expertise. A College of Nursing would have a master's degree in community health. And so community health nursing, how different is that from public health, right? And so you have to be able to sort of understand those nuances of a discipline, public health. How do they look at patients? How do they look at communities versus our discipline, nursing? How do we look at patients? How do we look at communities? So it's a little bit about having a different worldview. And that's something to make sure you understand before you make this big decision and this investment. Now, the other reason that I want to share with you the MSN, MBA, those are master's degrees that are awarded by a college. And then every once in a while, you'll see a master's degree, like my master's degree is an MS. And you're like, well, how does this nurse have an MS and not an MSN? And what's that about? I don't get it. But yet that nurse who has an MS, their degree is in nursing. So the nuance there that's subtle but somewhat important, is that graduate colleges award a Master's of Science. So that's sort of the academic type of graduate degree, whereas your colleges award a master's degree that's more of a professional degree, right? So this is the degree at the master's level where it prepares you to be a practitioner. Whereas if your degree comes out of the graduate college, that's probably indicating that you're on the journey to go on to doctoral studies. So it's and in the old days, when I was young and in school, the distinction between the curriculum and the courses and the capstone experience at the master's level for a nurse used to be pretty different between the graduate college degree and the College of Nursing degree. But anymore, that hasn't really withstood the test of time. You're perfectly legitimate and perfectly safe and a perfectly good investment if your master's degree is awarded from a graduate college versus a College of Nursing. And this will make sense when we go to this next slide. So I think the message here is think about what discipline or what field or what kind of content or information interests you, because that may help you choose the right college for your graduate master's degree. So now, once we have this master's degree, now you look at, oh my gosh, look at all these, look at these apples, there's more alphabet soup at the doctoral degree level. So a couple of just definitional things for you here. You may hear people say, oh, I have my terminal degree. Okay, and you think, oh, what's that mean? The terminal degree is always the final degree in any discipline. So your terminal degree in nursing, as Nicole has, is a Doctor of Nursing Practice. That's the highest degree you can achieve in the College of Nursing. And that is, and I'm going to come to this in a minute, that's the practice doctorate. So when you hear people say terminal degree, you just think, okay, that's the last degree that one can achieve in a certain field. Here again, I'm showing you the terminal degrees in these different colleges. And for example, the EDD, College of Education. Each college has a practice doctorate and a research doctorate. And I'll explain the difference on the next slide. So you're seeing colleges that offer professional degrees that are the terminal degree in that particular discipline or field, and that is the highest degree one can achieve who is a clinical expert or a provider of care. And as many of you know, especially in the colleges of allied health now, our nutritionists have doctorates, our physical therapists, our occupational therapists, and this is the reason I always say the physician is no longer the only doctor on the team, right? So a physician is a special kind of doctor, but Nicole's a doctor and I'm a doctor, but I'm not a physician, right? So now our healthcare teams are multidisciplinary and there are physicians and doctors on the team, which, that gets into a whole nother webinar about, how physicians don't really like that. And in some states legislated that nurses can't use their title doctor in a clinical setting. So I'm just showing you this so you understand at the top of all these different colleges, there's the top degree. And I've seen nurses with EDDs, DRPHs, DHAs, DBAs, of course, DNPs, and of course, the PhD, which again, is the degree that's awarded out of the graduate college, even though you're taking coursework in the College of Nursing. So I hope if you have questions about this, just absolutely drop me a note and I can try to explain more. So the point here is understanding, do you want to be the expert clinician? Then you're probably on the trajectory to do a clinical doctorate. Or am I interested in going into research? So as we look at this next slide, this is sort of where the rubber hits the road, right? I have nurses ask me all the time, should I get a PhD? should I get a DNP? I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what they really mean. I'm not sure what the difference really is. Will my salary matter? Will my hours of work be different? You know, this is a huge decision. And again, you need to think through what's for you, what's your makes your heart sing, what is you know, the place, if you will, where you'd like to spend your time working. And Nicole and I will show you some titles and some different positions. But at the end of the day, a PhD is for someone who is more research focused. You are generating new knowledge, and you are spending more coursework typically with statistical analysis and learning more about research methods and spending more time learning about the philosophy of science, right? And at the end of the day, when you do research as a PhD student or as a, you know, a PhD prepared person, the knowledge you're generating is what we call generalizable, meaning I've done a study, I've looked at this population of patients, I've looked at this intervention, and this group of patients is similar enough to these other groups that I can generalize what I learned in this study to other groups of patients. So I know you probably didn't know you're going to get a little primer on research tonight, but hopefully that'll help this idea of generalizability, right? Now, on the flip side, there's someone who wants to be an expert as a clinician, and that's what Nicole is. She's an expert clinician. She has pursued her DNP. We know it is a practice-focused degree. Now, mind you, practice doesn't mean touching patients, because Nicole, as a case management expert, is, you know, if you will, touching, I don't want to say, she's touching charts and information and data, but she is practice focused. I'm going to let her and, you know, speak to this a little more, but when Nicole did her project, her capstone project, you know, the PhD student is doing the dissertation and is doing independent research to discover generalizable knowledge. Nicole was taking a practice issue that she saw that wasn't really quite right, or she had read a paper about a particular piece of evidence that was generalizable and needed to be implemented, or, you know, a DNP student might identify a quality improvement issue. You tackle those problems, you implement and look at the evidence. This is sort of where all of our evidence-based practice comes from. But at the end of the day, that knowledge is not transferable. It is applicable to this setting. It's applicable to this particular type of hospital. And sure, someone down the street could learn from the project a DNP student does, but you don't have the same level of rigor in science where you can say comfortably, I can transfer this knowledge to every hospital that is just like this and the same type of unit, and I know I'm going to find the exact same findings. That's not what knowledge transfer is about. Knowledge transfer is about taking something out of the evidence and taking something out of the literature and transferring it to practice, I think is the way to think of it. So these are subtle distinctions. And I want to say to all of you, if you are thinking about a DNP, be very, very careful, because this is a new degree, right? PhDs in nursing have been around since the 50s. DNP, maybe 10 years. I mean, even maybe 15. I can remember being on a DNP committee when I was on faculty, and it was very, very new. It has taken some time for the curricula to get more refined, for us to understand these nuances that I'm sharing with you. And I have run into many a DNP student, when they tell me what their project is, it sounds like a PhD. And I'm like, you are doing way too much work for a DNP type degree. You really should be getting the PhD. So you kind of have to be careful, because some faculty are still learning this distinction, and you want to just not find yourself doing knowledge generation and being awarded a DNP when gosh, maybe you should be getting a PhD. So that's just like a word of caution. So that's kind of my academic spiel to help you sort of tease out which type of degree in which type of college. And I would also caution you, please, 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 please try not to do too many master's degrees. And it's okay if you have an interest in business or informatics and you have a nursing and you do a joint degree, right? I mean, but if you keep adding master's degrees on top of one another, by the time you're done, you've done all the coursework for a doctoral degree, and you might as well be recognized for all that work. So it breaks my heart sometimes when nurses think, well, I couldn't achieve my career goal with one master's degree, so I achieved it with a second master's degree. Oftentimes, if you sit with a really smart career counselor or career coach, they can help you kind of map out which type of doctoral degree sits on top of your master's degree and lets you work on and gain the knowledge that you're interested in. Because at the end of the day, it gets expensive to keep adding master's degrees and not achieving that terminal degree. So there usually are ways to finesse that. You just typically need some help figuring it out, because we don't always make it easy for nurses to figure some of this stuff out. So, and with that, I think, Nicole, we're going to talk about careers, right? Any questions?
We actually have a few questions that were sent in to me, so I'll go ahead and ask those and see if you ladies have any answers for these.
Okay.
The first one, which I'm sure this could apply to quite a few of you. She sent me a question stating, have always wanted to earn a higher degree, now late in my career, haven't had the opportunity because of finances. Are there any lists of financial aid available?
So
go ahead, Nicole.
So I was just going to say, there's multiple different sources. Number one, I would start looking at the different institutions that she's even thinking about. She doesn't have to enroll in them, and set up a meeting with their financial aid office, because they can go through all of the different opportunities that they have, because some of the opportunities may be specific to that particular institution, right? That's one avenue. Another place that nurses can go to look at the different opportunities for funding for their graduate studies is the American Nurses Association. They actually have on there different opportunities that may be available. So that's another platform that they can go through. Every single one of us guys should be a part of a professional organization. Every last single one of us. And that's one of the benefits of being tied to those organizations. They will present you directly with these different offerings or these different, opportunities that are available for funding. So I would definitely tell her go there. There are certain grants that are out there, like I said, for example, through HRSA. Pretty much you're going to find those type of grants. If it's an area that there's really and truly a shortage, then they're saying, hey, if you go back to school to learn this particular skill or get this knowledge base, we'll pay for it. That's essentially what they're saying. So I think that those three things can definitely, start to get her into that groove of where to find that funding, because she's right, it's expensive to be able to pay for that. And I'm sure Beth has some more, amazing opportunities that she knows of directly. But definitely get in with you gotta be with a professional organization, guys. ANA is probably the quickest one that we can all join. And they always sending out different, memos of opportunities.
And I think to Nicole's point too, let's say you decide to go apply at a college of nursing, ask them if they have a HRSA grant for faculty loan forgiveness, right? Because that's a program where it's, especially for those of you who are interested in becoming faculty one day, the government will pay for your education if you desire. So you need to ask the colleges if they have funding from a federal grant or maybe a state grant, and then they then award those dollars to you as a student.
All right, thank you, ladies. That was incredibly insightful. I had a couple questions. One was, and I'm not quite sure if I'm saying this correctly, so forgive me, but they were wondering if it was possible for a master's in telenursing. I believe that was the question.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, because there was two papers that were just written like 3 or 4 months ago in Nurse Leader about telehealth curriculum. How are we preparing the next generation to practice in a telehealth environment? And then there was an accompanying paper that talked about what do colleges of nursing need to do to expand the curriculum. So I think you're probably a little bit early in thinking, but it's brilliant thinking because it's where we're going. So
Yeah.
I would look at places that have masters in innovation like Dan Weberg, because I think those are the places that are really pushing. And I personally don't know of any colleges that have a master's in telehealth nursing, but I've got to think it's coming because the new essentials document talks a lot about telehealth. So, but you can also, you know, part of being a graduate student is being very self-directed and very inquisitive. And so you could go to a master's program in simulation nursing and then say, hey, I want to really specialize in telehealth, and then take courses in a different college that build out your curriculum to provide you with that expertise.
Yeah. Yeah, and they can also informatics, nursing informatics, they definitely go a lot into telehealth in that particular degree. And there is an actual nursing, a master's in nursing informatics, right? Because those are the nurses that are actually building the infrastructure for the different EMRs and all of the different technology that we're using.
Yeah.
So they can also, that would probably be the closest degree to that right now. But I'm like, Beth, I see it's coming because we've been seeing that we were going to go to this shift of telemedicine over the last 10 years. COVID has definitely expedited that. It's all gas right now. They're not going to put their foot on the brake with that. It's coming.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, look at HIMSS, the Healthcare Information Management Society, and ANIA, the American Nurses Association of Informatics, and there's an association for simulation, you know, people who are experts in simulation. So those are the places to go to look for the degree programs and scholarship money.
Okay, well, thank you both, ladies. I think the other questions you might be discussing in the upcoming bit, so we can probably go ahead and move on to that section.
Yeah.
All right. So we are ready to start talking about the different careers. So I'm going to kick it off and then hand it over to Beth. I'm going to kick it off with talking about what are some of the more traditional advanced practice or advanced degrees that you can actually, you know, take those career paths. So that's what I want to jump in first. So let's look at some of the traditional advanced degrees for nursing careers. All right. So we have our instructor of clinical nursing. Those are those nurses that decide, hey, I want to go into academia, right? And so what degree do you need for that? You at least need a master's degree. You do not have to have a doctorate degree. However, some actual academic institutions like the one that I work at, they require us to get a doctorate within 5 years of employment there, right? So it's not a requirement to get the job, but we do have to have one within 5 years. And that's because they want to make sure that they are providing the latest and the greatest information to their students there, okay? So again, you'll just have to look at, you know, if that's going to be a requirement for that particular academic institution. Instructors of clinical nursing can also work in the hospital settings. Every hospital has an education department. So you may say, you know what, I don't want to educate actual students or forthcoming nurses. I want to really and truly do this on a patient-to-patient basis, right? And so you can work in a hospital setting for that. We also have healthcare consultants. You can be a master's prepared nurse, or you can be a doctorally prepared nurse for this, right? Specifically your DNP. And what are the career locations? You can work in your actual home, right? As a healthcare consultant. You can work in skilled nursing facilities. You can work for states. You can get contracts yourself. You can get government contracts. The government is always contracting nurses because they need our knowledge. They know that we have the knowledge that they need, especially right now through COVID, where we can provide them different information that they need to solutionize for the different problems, barriers, and challenges that they're facing. So there is a plethora of different opportunities and different actual settings in which nurses can practice as a healthcare consultant versus, you know, doing it, you know, always through an actual organization. You can actually do this yourself by setting up your own healthcare consulting practice. But again, that's more on the entrepreneurship side, but there is definitely an opportunity. We also have our public health consultant. And so what degree do we need for those? You definitely at minimum need to have your master's degree. And you can also, get your DNP or a PhD when we talk about public health consultant. So where are we going to see these particular jobs? You're probably going to see these at your state Department of Health, right? Every single state has a Department of Health that really and truly focuses on the public health of the state in which they are actually overseeing. You can also see this in school nursing, school-based settings, also occupational health, okay? Anything to deal with the health of the overall public is where you can find a job in this particular area. Our nursing informatics, we had somebody that was just asking about the telehealth, right? So at minimum, you need a master's degree. You can get a DNP. And where can you work? You can work in a hospital. You can work for a technology company. There's a plethora of different opportunities. When we talk about technology companies, I'm talking like you can go and work for Amazon. You can go and work for Google. You can go and work for all of these organizations because they are also coming out with their own leg of different healthcare platforms. And who are they going to need to help them build that? They need a nurse at the table to help them to be able to build that. You can also, the obvious role that everybody knows about, nurse practitioner. So you do not have to get your doctorate, a DNP, to become a nurse practitioner. At minimum, you must get your master's degree. However, I do want to put out there that I am advising every single nurse that I encounter right now that is sure that they want to be a nurse practitioner to start right now looking at your state's regulations, start talking to the State Board of Nursing there to see where they are getting ready to go. A lot of the different states are getting ready to mandate that their nurse practitioners be doctorally prepared, okay? So if you're thinking about doing that and you know that that's where they're going to be going in the next 5 years, a lot of programs, for example, where I work, the institution I work at, the academic center, they actually now, that's the only track they have. You have to get your DNP, right? So you just want to consider that. Also, clinical nurse specialist. At minimum, you must have your master's degree. You can also get a DNP. And where can you work in this area? Hospital or a clinic. We also have our nurse executives. At minimum, you can have your MSc. And I am seeing more nurse execs, really more facilities wanting them to be actually have their terminal degree, either DNP or a PhD, and you can work in multiple different facilities or different organizations and paths with this one too. Hospitals, public and private organizations, government agencies, anywhere that they're needing the knowledge of a nurse, pretty much they're going to have an opportunity for a nurse executive to be able to oversee those different areas and those different needs that that particular institution may have. Clinical trial nurse, right? There is such thing as a clinical trial nurse. At minimum, they should actually have their master's degree. They can have a DNP degree. That's not required though. And where they're going to work? Most of them are going to work for a pharmaceutical company. They're not the ones that are actually out there going to try to sell the medications to the providers. We have our drug reps for that, but they're overseeing the clinical trials. And there are several institutions, several different new medications that are coming out in which they need nurses to be able to provide that knowledge base. Again, it goes back to that knowledge base, right? And us positioning ourselves as subject matter experts, which is what all of this is about and what graduate school does for you, and which is why you now have this opportunity to operate in this particular capacity as a clinical trial nurse. The last one that I want to go over that's traditional is our healthcare systems leadership. And so this is where you can actually get your master's degree. You can also get your DNP and PhD. Take me, for example, I actually got my DNP. Most people, whenever they find out that I'm a DNP nurse, they say, oh, so you're a nurse practitioner. What do you practice? No, I never wanted to be a nurse practitioner. I was very, very intentional and clear on what my overall goal was. I specifically got mine in healthcare systems leadership because I was very, very clear that I wanted to be able to consult with different healthcare organizations around the state to be able to help them ensure that their quality improvement processes and department were in alignment with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, right? And so I was very, very strategic in making sure that I got my DNP in healthcare systems leadership so that I can look at the system from a holistic quality perspective. That's what Beth was saying when she was explaining the different differences in practice and research. I am all practice. Bring your practice and your protocols to me. Let's break it apart. Let's see what's going on with it. And let's see if it's in alignment with what CMS, which is a regulatory body, is saying that you must have. So that's another opportunity there for healthcare systems leadership. And where can you work in that particular capacity? You can work for Center for Medicaid, Medicare and Medicaid Services. You can work for your state health department. You can become an independent contractor, like I have actually positioned myself now, in which I actually contract with different FQHCs in the state here, and actually just took a global contract to help them to be able to get their quality department in alignment with what their regulatory bodies are requiring, right? So it's just so many different opportunities that getting a graduate, your graduate education can offer you guys. And I just can't expound upon that enough. It's just so many different opportunities, but I want you all to be strategic and do what's important to you, not to someone else. That's the key to all of this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Beth, and Beth is going to tell you about some non-traditional advanced degree careers.
Yeah. So, so I'll tell you a quick little story. When I knew I wanted to go back to graduate school, had just been recruited to work at a regional advertising agency in Chicago, and as soon as I got accepted to graduate school, I knew I was going to take all my electives in marketing and health policy. And so thinking about how do you use electives to help you learn about a different business or industry, if you will also support you if you choose to move into a very, what I would call, non-traditional career. So, one of you had asked about health policy. There's always many ways to skin this cat, right? You could certainly do health policy with a master's, but then ask yourself, should I go to a school that's in the middle of where all the policy's going on? And maybe I choose a College of Nursing in Washington, D.C. And, that's a much more viable option these days because of all the online learning. Certainly when I was in school, that online was very, very new. So it was more difficult to achieve that kind of a goal. But think about, if you want to do business or finance, where are those places that make sense to look at programs in those neighborhoods or those states, I should say. So architectural firms, consulting firms, it's pretty traditional, if you will, to see a nurse in a big six consulting firm or see a nurse in an architectural firm that is, designing new clinic space or designing new hospitals. But then you have to ask yourself, what's the best type of preparation that would help me do a project as a master's student in one of these organizations? So that's the time where you can be a little more creative again with not only the electives you take, but then also where do you do a final project or an internship, and you can find those non-traditional careers in some of these types of organizations. And then vendors, it used to be that nurses was very typical, as Nicole has said. You'd see nurses in a pharmaceutical company, you'd see a nurse in a consulting firm, an electronic health record company. That, those weren't that was pretty traditional for a non-traditional nurse. Now you have nurses who are the chief health officer for Walmart or the chief nurse practitioner officer for CVS. And so there's these newer roles that are sort of being developed and evolving that we really never thought about before. And sometimes those are the nurses that are creating those roles. And they're the ones trailblazing. They're the first nurse to be working in Walmart who is leading all of nurse practitioners in the whole company. And they say to the company, I think you need one of these. And so sometimes you create some of these positions. You can see on here some of the, I have on there technology startup. I have a number of colleagues who started as a consultant at a technology company. Very quickly, the technology company was like, hey, we need a nurse. And the nurse said, it's me. Let me help you design this job. Let me help you create the role, and then you should hire me. And so anytime you have that advanced degree, you're more marketable, certainly, but you also can use that time in the classroom to dip your toe into some of these other areas of expertise and build some of that content in your coursework. Entrepreneurship. same thing. Nurses who want to start their own business. I've had my own consulting practice for probably 20 years, but I only use it when I need it, right? I have it there. It's sort of my, it's another opportunity I have to, to use my nursing expertise in a different way. But I've always had a consulting company, even if I've had a normal real job. And that's not difficult to do. I have a friend who is the CEO of an NGO. So NGO is a non-government organization. So there's all these places that are doing work around social justice, human services, non-for-profits that are the perfect place for nurses. They've probably just never had a nurse. And once you start saying, hey, have you ever thought about hiring a nurse? And then you tell them all the skills you bring, it doesn't often take a whole lot that someone is like, gosh, I never thought this would be a great fit for us to have a nurse. So sometimes you have to be just risk taking and pushing that envelope a little bit. So there you go. Oh, and I put on there for consulting. Yeah, if you decide to be a consultant, you will be on an airplane a lot. So think about that in terms of, as Nicole was saying, about work-life balance and your family and, how does all that play out? So should we, all right, so here's our tips, right? What's next? Gosh, we have, I don't know, Nicole, we have lots of tips here. Know what your purpose is, know what you like. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really quick so that we can be cognitive of everyone's time. What are some things that, where do we go from here? I really and truly think that everyone on this call hone into your purpose. That is what you lead with. Do not lead with what feels good to me, what feels good to Beth, or anyone else that you're connected to. Know who you are. Who are you for your people, and what are you passionate about? All right. Also, again, incorporate your overall nursing experience. Every single experience is leading you up into your ultimate destination. So think about those things, even the bad experiences. We need all of those different experiences to help us to shape what it is that we should be doing in our nursing careers. Research the ins and outs of what you want to do. Research, 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 research. The great thing is that we have Google at our fingertips now, guys, right? At any given moment, you can start that research and research those different things that you want and know them in and out. Get a mentor if you can't find exactly what you're looking for, and they can help you to be able to do that as well. Work in every single role as a nurse you think you may like. So many times, I know for me, I was raised by old school, mom and grandparents. You go to college, you get a job, you stay at that job for 50 years, you retire good, and you don't ever leave, right? And then you just go on. No. I think that we as nurses need to work in every single area that we think we may like, because that's where we're going to find out those things that we do like, or either those things we don't like, and we can really and truly start to hone in, what are we passionate about? Because sometimes we do not know, right? So it's okay, I think, for nurses to be able to work in as many areas that they can until they say, you know what, this is the area for me. And even all of those experiences are going to mean something. And last but not least, find a mentor. Every single person on this call should have a mentor. I say all the time, two of the world's greats, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, they had Phil Jackson, and they were the greats of basketball. If they had a coach and a mentor, what makes you think you don't need one? So get you a mentor.
I'm chatting. I'm cognizant of the time too, so I'm putting some things in the chat for you all to read about or think about. But if you go back to grad school, start thinking about every paper you write, don't write a paper because, it's an assignment for a course. Think about it as, this is a really cool topic. I should get this published. Use school as an opportunity to start making a name for yourself and doing some publishing and certainly presenting at conferences. And then, and Nicole's already said this, do your homework on grad school, because it's a huge investment. You don't want to, spend your time and money and spin your wheels and not, and take more credits than you need, because it's expensive. So just do your homework. Go ahead, Nicole.
Really quick, some advice that I want to do, that I want to leave you all with is that I want you to do what's intended for you. I've said that several times throughout here. Your life is your life. My life is my life, right? And we were all put here for one specific thing. I'd say all the time, I don't care. And this is not me being humbuggish or braggadocious or anything. I don't care how many nurses are working alongside me. Nobody can do what it is that Nicole does because I have my own purpose as a nurse, right? So do what's intended for you. Develop you a plan. A plan without a dream without a plan is merely a hallucination. I'm going to say that one more time. A dream without a plan is a hallucination. So you have all of these different dreams and things that you want to actually achieve. Develop a plan on how you're going to get and achieve that dream. And last but not least, find you a mentor. Leave off of this call today and go get you a mentor. There is someone out there that is willing to provide you with the knowledge, the strategies, their tips, their failures, their losses, so that you don't do the same thing so that you can reach your goals.
I know we just had a couple questions, and I'm going to see if we can go through them really quickly so we can let everyone go.
All right.
I know someone asked a question about becoming a cannabis nurse. Is there a graduate degree associated with that, or is it most likely a certification?
There's probably going to be a
but there's an
certification
association for cannabis nurses.
Yeah, there's an association, but there's no degree, no particular degree you need for that. And cannabis nurses are about to start winning. Can I just say that? If they want to do it, go do it. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last question I'm going to pose is, do you have any advice on how to choose a doctoral program?
My advice would be is to look at your goals, think about what it is that you're trying to achieve, and can they help you achieve that? Point blank, period. Look at what you're trying to achieve, and can you help me achieve that, right? With all of my circumstances and situations that I have going on, do you have the resources to help me with my work-life balance? Do you have resources to help position me in what it is that I want to do? Put yourself in the center, and can they cater to what you need? That's my advice.
And my add-on to that, because Nicole's exactly right. I would say for those of you who do not want to be a nurse practitioner or clin spec or a midwife, choose a doctoral program that is intended for non-direct care clinicians, because you don't want to find yourself in core courses like pathophysiology and you want to be in health policy. I have seen nurses end up taking the 3 Ps, as we call it, which you don't necessarily need unless you intend to be a direct care provider. So think about choosing a program that is made for non-direct providers, if that makes sense.
All right. Well, we are already over, so I think that's it. Nicole, anything to add here?
I dropped it in the chat. We will send out the wrap up, the slide images, as well as the recording within the next day or so. So keep a lookout for that. And also, as I mentioned, we have so many events coming up. Your feedback is really important. So please take a moment and check that email asking for feedback and let us know how we did. And keep an eye out for all the other events that we have in this series and beyond in the future. We really appreciate y'all showing up tonight. And thank you to our incredible hosts for all that amazing information. Ladies, you're wonderful as always. Thank you.
Yes, that was excellent. So thank you.